And thank you for the recording. We have done some decent work to put iterations and priorities so that it's a bit more clear in terms of what's going on, when things will come, etc. What are folks working on? That way, there are few other bugs that I realized we have in our previous notes in Slack channel. Start to capture them in the issues. If it's a bug, we'll put it in the right priority. And if there is help wanted, I've been adding help wanted tags. You know, again, folks take a look and assign this to yourself. This is a community project, but through other mechanisms, Slack and other channels, I'm reaching out to folks to pick up issues. So
I'm adding like open questions if there's time at the QA section.
perfect.
Me and Neil have a question about monorepo
Okay.
before we get there.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I think we have proliferated more repos. There are obviously some pros and cons. Let's talk about that. Just in a nutshell, there are a couple of bug fixes, feature-related things around code gen. And I think one of the features I was also thinking about is add CASBin rules to code gen because MCP, the latest 2.1 spec, both fast MCP, everybody implements the bearer token. I was wondering if we could map those scopes, either CASBin or OPA, map the scopes
What is
to.
CASPing? Sorry, how do you
So
write that?
CASBin is like
CASBin.
a authorization library. So you could basically take OAuth scopes and annotate your functions. So only if those scopes exist, it will let you call those. So
that's for security, like OAuth.
yeah, RBAC.
To see which tools get allowed to get called by. Okay.
Yeah. For example, you as a user, let's say, can read GitHub but cannot create anything. Today, as you know, everybody has access to every tool. The assumption is that the agents are running back in service accounts. There has to be some gating mechanism. I mean, the protocol talks about you need to do OAuth. Doesn't say how do you do authorization, and it's always a complex topic.
I see. Yeah, I saw some examples in the MCP repo, but iffy. Like, yeah, hello world kind of examples. At least when I looked at it.
And many of them, they talk about passing the OAuth scope or OAuth token, JWT, the bearer token to, from A to MCP, etc. But when you get kind of the rubber meets the road, when you get the OAuth token, yes, we authenticate using the key set, JWKS. That's just the first part of it. Yeah, you know that this is a valid user, but does that user really have permissions?
Yeah, I think I don't remember, did I share a document that Christian Posta did in LinkedIn of like impersonating versus like using the token versus what's the other term?
You shared
Two
that.
ways of it. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so it's related to that.
Delegation, Carlos, he was talking about impersonation versus delegation.
Yep.
Yeah, I
So
think
this is related to this, right? This CASPing is related to that? Okay.
it's exactly related to that. We just need a topic here that RBAC impersonation versus authentication and using it's like CASPin. So this is where we harden the containers we're supporting, so that this is kind of the next level of hardening this. So I'll just include this in the roadmap. Just put a little detail here. So this will be an enhancement, help needed, and yep, we'll leave this here. So in terms of the current set of activities, Ifan is here, he should be, and he'll present in the second demo, some of the work that's being done with evaluations and how we're doing tracing with Rise Phoenix and some of the other OSS tracing solutions. Shubham will demo GraphRAG. So I think it's either almost open sourced or it's about to be open sourced. So that's the next demo. And there is one PR, that's pending that Kanav worked on that customizes the system prompt. So we don't need to rebuild the images. So you could override the existing system prompt.
Oh, I'm interested on that. I'm working on something similar like that on reloading system prompt, like with a config map or something like that in Kubernetes.
Yeah, so take a look at this. I am yet to kind of double check and merge this. So essentially, the idea here is that he has a YAML file. Of course, that YAML file could be a config map or mounted, and basically that will, it'll percolate through the system, and there is a default system prompt, and you can override this from the Docker Composer. If you could do it from Docker Compose, it could be done from config map. So that way, we'll have our opinionated way that we evaluate and test. If someone wants to override, they can also always come back and do that. So this is pending review. Just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, I like the concept because that could map to something else I'm looking into, K agents.
Yep.
Which is the K agent concept, not necessarily the project of how to use AutoGen, but the concept of having a CRD that has prompts and tools, and then basically that's the definition that YAML Kubernetes YAML is the definition of an agent.
Yeah.
So this direction moved into that, right? Taking that out from the code. Doesn't have to be in JavaScript or Python in the middle of the Go code.
Yep. I agree. It's a template, and that's essentially the core of how agents function. So please take a look at the PR. I hope to merge that today.
I'm taking notes.
So kind of did the work. So the backstage agent, I believe, is merged, or I think it's enabled in Docker Compose. I'll double check that. So you should be able to interact with the. I think it probably wasn't included in the Docker Compose. So we just need to include the backstage agent in the Docker Compose so you can interact with the backstage agent as well. So
what was the last thing that you mentioned?
So the Docker Compose as of today, it's not starting the backstage agent.
Okay.
The backstage agent can talk to a backstage instance and call the backend APIs to get any kind of CRUD information. So that I see is missing. So I believe there is a PR. We'll get that merged. So these are just in progress activities. Cool. There is also work happening. Sunny just picked this up around cleaning up Helm charts, making it work with a kind cluster, etc. I am working on a RAG, unstructured data, like RAG agent that we could use with something very simple like the Facebook AI, semantic search, FIAS, or even something like Milvis, that even as a reference, we could just index all of Canoe, or you can give your own, like index your playbooks. Like we have our internal platform docs that we serve as Q&A. So this would be a great agent to include in our multi-agent system where folks can ask, hey, give me information about, Canoe, or how do I set up, AWS CLI access in Cisco? There is a unique way to do that. So I think that is also in progress. Some of the other things that are on the deck, we have a contributor from Cisco who built a WebEx agent, Torben. He's going to upstream that code, so we're going to so that's under review. It's still in private branch. I'm hoping that someone could pick up an AWS, like all the MCP tools. So we could build an agent out of that or include that in the multi-agent system. And last but not least, do some work around A2A and Keycloak integration. So that way the auth and auth layers with OAuth are continuing to improve in that space. So
Just a quick question. How are we planning on keeping the agent template up to date? Because I noticed that it's a little bit out of date compared to our recent changes. Just if someone were to try and pick up the work for the AWS MCP.
great point. I think
Oh, 18
so.
hours ago.
Yeah, Rihan. So there was some branching issues, but anyway, Rihan updated this. Take a look. I think it still has some rough edges, but as you bring up, I'm going to add a story here. Let me just capture. Thank you for bringing that up. Do you mind at least validating this, Adam?
Yeah, I'll definitely validate it. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, that would be awesome if you could do that. What's your handle, Adam?
A Dickinson 72.
I think you.
Oh, I
I'm
might have
not
to.
seeing-
Yeah. I might have to.
I need to add you to.
Yeah.
Let me add you to the agentic project. Okay, let me go. I think to be able to give you. Okay, so could you give your user ID again, please?
A Dickinson, INSON 72.
72. All right.
That's me.
So, yep, I'm going to give you access. So if you can accept that, I'll put this on your plate. That would be great to get that contribution. So we will do this as yep. Then should I basically task? All right. Thank you. Thank you for actually. This is one of the things that we are also internally building some agents and like, hey, our reference is out of date, and yeah, so it uses the pet store.
So the task is to test this. I'm confused. The
task is to test it. Yeah, exactly.
Why are we doing manual test? Do we have to do manual test every the month or?
I think that was just refactored. So this is just to validate. Someone just pick it up and see if it has all the right elements. A container. And
review the content, right? Not actually test. Because I'm highlighting like integration tests or unit tests should be there, not necessarily. But it's reviewing the content. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Let me rephrase that. Review.
Is there an opportunity to write an AI agent that tests? Actually, I'm just looking for any opportunity to write an agent.
Yeah.
And do the testing.
Yeah. Agreed. Stable containers, and maybe we could. Do you think we should add this as like a ref into the multi-agent system where someone can just bring up, or this could just be brought up as a standalone agent?
Well, yeah, I don't know the background of a agent template, but this sounds like the what is that project that we use, cookie coder, which is something that in Python you said I want to create a new repo or a new Python project, and it uses templates and it puts the name of like my hello world.
Yeah, Poetry New is one. Yeah, Poetry New.
Poetry and I'm new to the Python.
Cookie Cutter, yeah, Cookie Cutter has one of those. Helm New, yeah, I think if we can make the
if that's the intention of this repo, right? I don't know if it was the intention or not.
That was the initial intention, but I think we really need to move into a monorepo from a usability point of view. I think that'll
find this repo. Could be a folder.
Yeah, within the correct
in the platform engineering. So I think that's one topic me and Neon wanted to of like writing down the task, and if somebody's going to do it or we can do it.
I think the other concern here for me is I think we're going
straight to the possible, like what could be the worst case, most complicated agent, and setting every agent up as if it needs to be super complicated. Where, like, I think we talked about this before, right? Most of the agents that we have are React agents with MCP tools in them. Those require zero code, right? They are a system prompt, a pointer to some MCPs. The MCPs might need to be generated as code somewhere else, but I think, and we can talk about this later, I think we need to start to diverge from generating the agent with the MCP, and we need to hopefully come up with a way where we can generate agents without writing any code, because I'm just concerned that we're generating so much code here. It's going to become unmaintainable. Even with a monorepo, it's still a lot of stuff, right?
It's okay to auto-generate MCP servers, right? But not an agent.
I mean, it's technically okay to do either. It's just whether you need to is the question.
I see.
Generated code is still code.
Yeah.
I think let's put a pin on this so that we can go to demos.
Yep.
Let's cap it at 10 minutes from now. I think I want to, Ken, if you can go around, give your take on this, and then we can just at least, there is no right or wrong answer. There are like opinions, and we can just weigh the pros and cons and make a decision here. Carlos, you want to kick it off, and then we can go around Nayal and Hasi. Go ahead, Carlos.
No, my point was what Hasi says, to write down the plan of like moving into a monorepo, and then what will be the initial set of directories, right? And what will be the content of those directories?
Yeah, let me.
That's my first, and then the second item will be like agent scaffolding or agents out of like the topic before, right? Create an agent with an mcp.json and a system prompt, or just a YAML file that doesn't need any code written. It's an idea that we can discuss in a later time or now. And then Neil, I think you have some points on the A2A orchestration of agents to create the some places it's called coordinator, some other places supervisor. I was looking for like what's the right word for that topology.
Like a hierarchical supervisor type agent, like
yeah, the one like the definition of the AI platform engineer, right? He's a coordinator or supervisor composed of other A2A agents, and himself is also an A2A agent.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, it was more of a question that I was just reviewing the repo before the call started, and I thought that the AI platform engineering repo, I couldn't join last week, so I wasn't sure if that was already starting to be designed to be our mono repo, how far along that was. But when I look in the agents, when I first was like, oh, I think this is the mono repo, I went to agents and I was like, wait, these aren't the agents, these are wrappers around the agents.
Correct. These are creating, they're basically creating, these are clients to A2A servers. So the architecture we're at, and again, this is a good topic to nail down. So these individual agents today are like the A2A servers that expose MCP, and from the composition agent, the AI platform engineer, there is just creating bindings to them, right? So for example, let's say we have bindings to a bunch of agents. The multi-agent system, for example, an incident engineer could only use 2 of them. Like
that's what mask means. Okay. I
Yeah,
didn't know what MAS meant. Like I thought it was an internal Cisco name.
No, it's a it's like a industry acronym, multi-agent system.
Okay.
So a multi-agent system is a composition of, like, if your product owner could be GitHub and Jira, and it doesn't have anything else. So that's an opinionated definition of that. Then really we could directly put the agents here as well, the client and server part of it. It would definitely reduce some of that noise. And
I see. So it's a double level agent, right? It's the agent A2A talks to another A2A, then you have another level of A2A. I think some of this stuff should go into the mono repo and leave this agentic AI just for roadmap project management issues.
Yes. So I think that's
Thinking out
go
loud.
ahead.
We can collapse everything to the monorepo, right? Like from a user point of view, ideally you'd want this is the single place I go, I check out, and I should be able to make a contribution, right? So
Yeah, this repo is only a laundry list of like project items or roadmap items.
no, I mean even that can kind of fold into that single repo once we have it, right? Potentially.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Right? Like because we started with like many repositories, you needed something, right? So then you could kind of like ideally combine everything, right? And that way, it's just simple things like even RBAC access, everybody gets access to. You sort it out once,
And we can have like dynamically with an agent or whatever, like create the have a diagram like this, but with actually what's in the repo, right? With names, right? If we have folders that have Argo CD and like 3 or 4, like where those names show up here, right? Like like people can see what is in this repo is what is in this diagram. This is like a high level generic diagram, right?
But like, what about having like an agent repo, right? Rather than keeping like we have the supervisory agent, the multi-agent, the AI platform multi-agent supervisory agent and its own repo, and then for like all the other downstream agents, we could have like those in a separate repo. Because I'm just thinking like I might pick and choose like, or most people are probably gonna pick and choose which agents they want. They may not necessarily want
They
everything.
can do
So
it in mono repo. And that's what I think Neil was saying. Like the mono repo is just a folder of where we work that people find our stuff.
More
And
for the
then
management stuff, right? It's just we're just copying and pasting so much stuff, which we can reduce in other ways. But I guess for me at this point in my tenure, I'm going to build a massive repo until I have a reason to break them apart. And I guess what's the reason to have them broken apart, given that it adds so much legwork?
yeah.
Thought, so from my perspective, I mean, ideally we could have two repos, one around MCP servers. Typically what we see is you have MCP servers used in multiple places. So agentic is one use case. So we could have a repo which consists of all the MCP servers, whether they are auto-generated or referencing public MCP servers, and then a repo dedicated to agents.
I argue that for the outside community, I argue that I will bend my arm to say I'm prefer to have a mono repo that I can tell people go to one place than try to explain to them I have like 2 places, and then, because it makes sense architecturally and engineering wise, because we're going to have releases and we have the bug fixes and we have millions of people like opening PRs. Like we're not there yet. So let's just go with simple things.
Yeah, I'd phrase it the same way as like when someone says they want another Kubernetes cluster rather than put in an existing cluster. The question is always why? Reasons to do it, but why? Because it's going to cost you something. So like if it helps for maintenance or other reasons, but like we have a huge mono repo of the AWS Labs ones, arguably too large. All of those are individually releasable. They're not released as one big like they're all individual Python projects. Yep. They're just not managed in the same place. Like otherwise we'd have 100 repositories by now.
I think that's probably a good compromise. Adam, what do you think if we?
I'm sold on mono repo. I've been swayed. So
yeah,
mono repo.
I think if we do what Niall just mentioned, in individually releasable artifacts, keep how we do the Docker Composer Helm charts. Basically, that repo will have many artifacts,
many versions, different versions,
and artifacts, and they can.
I have another. I have another example. I have a repo called the Gyros Bridge Helm charts, and I have like 7 Helm charts in one repo, and it uses the automation of Helm chart releases. That if anyone updates one of the Helm charts, is only that Helm chart gets released, and it's in the releases and the release notes and everything automatically. So with GitHub Actions, this stuff can be automated.
Yeah. So I think that's great. I think if you look at the scope of our repos, I would probably keep the utility repo sort of away from the multi-agent repos, just because the utility repo could be, it's a Python package. So that is something that anybody can like, pip install, and I'm sure we can collapse it in the monorepo. Do you have any
You can put
thoughts?
it. You can put it in a folder with the project.toml. You can point to with a pip install. You can point to a folder inside project.toml.
Yeah,
easily.
And we can do the CLI the same way.
Go ahead, Hasis.
Yeah. I was going to say like exactly what you said. Basically, collapse everything into the same thing and then release separately, whether it's a pip or a something. I mean, the biggest benefit is this, right? Leaving tech side aside, it's about people collaborating in one place, the access issues, and then it's because second you split things, that's friction, right? And if you combine everything, anybody, the next new person coming in here, this is where you start. You can see everything, right? You sort out access there, and that's done, right? You have it's a toggle, right? You once you're in, you have access, right? And then you can contribute and you can understand what's going on, right?
You can give one of these LLM agents in the IDE, or tell me what is in this folder and explain it, right? Like I'm 5 years old, right? And then the thing just look into one repo, one folder, and then just show you like it builds you a movie.
Kubernetes is for the most part still one repository, right? Yeah. Obviously, it's very extensible and you can break it apart, but like that's arguably one of the largest open source projects that's still one large repo.
Yeah, and it adds a lot of benefits like getting stars and visibility, a lot of.
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't think about that tree. Stars. Only star one repo. Interesting.
Because our agentic repo has more stars. We'll have to do more comms on this. Obviously, I know a lot of people look at this, but they may not think about starting this. One final question, and then we'll go to demos. Are we good with this name? Should we just call it AI Platform Engineering, AI Platform Engineer?
Should we start a design doc for this that we can iterate on a little bit offline and then discuss again? Yeah. Maybe a Google Doc that we can throw out references to what the repository structure will be, how it's named, pros and cons, especially for posterity in case this inevitably comes up again. Like next year, once we've forgotten all this, we can just do that, and that way we can get the demos and we can iterate on it.
Let's evolve the discussion. Discussion space. Yeah.
I will add the link here. Let's continue here. So before we jump to demos, Carlos, thanks for connecting us to the K Gateway and Agent Gateway team. I briefly looked at them. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I contact Lynn and Christian Posta, but I don't know if they had a chance to respond yet.
I think one of them did respond. They had
Christian. Okay, I see now. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a good concept. Their stuff is really ancient and out of date. I think if we can get that up to speed, I can see really that could be one of the key middlewares we could use for MCP.
Yeah, he said that John from Institute Community is overhaul the backend and it should cut a new release very soon. So they're moving very fast. I don't want to.
Yeah, if they have an office hour, I would love to join their office hour.
They should. You can ask there. Yeah.
I'll find out. And without further ado, I'm gonna pass to Shubham, so he can demo the next graph, the GraphRAG stuff. And if you can spare another 5 to 10 minutes, Shubham, at the end, Ifan will demo the tracing with Phoenix Rise source. So I'll pass the ball to you.
Sure. Thank you, Shri. I'll try to share my screen. Yep. You can see my screen, right? Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to demo a solution we have for GraphRAG as well as GraphGen side of things, which is how we generate the graph. So we are calling it XGraph, and it's a first iteration. So what it does is basically it's a sort of GraphRAG for structured data. And the pattern that we have noticed in structured data is that it's usually key values, and the values are usually foreign keys, right? Like they tend to refer to documents as like separate other documents, right? So in this case, for example, in an ingress, we see that like the namespace value refers to a namespace document, the cluster issuer refers to a cluster issuer document, and so on and so forth, right? And so what we have is basically what we do is we try to find these relations, right? So we take every property value and of every document, and we do a sort of fuzzy search. That gives us like, hey, okay, in this case, candidate test private. Where have I seen this value before? Let me do a fuzzy search of the entire database, and then that maybe results in 10 documents, right? And then we do a deeper property search where we go through each property to make sure that this actually matches, and maybe sets of property that match. And then that kind of filters it down to maybe, let's say, like 5 or 4 documents. And then we aggregate that across all the documents, right? Like, so if, for example, in the case of Gates ingress, if there's like lots and lots of Gates ingress that all point to the that have the same property pointing to the same document, then we can aggregate that, and then we provide the LLM with that aggregated heuristic and metrics, and say, hey, is this a relation that is actually valid or not? And then once the LLM responds with the confidence level, we basically auto-create that relation in the graph database if the confidence is high enough. So with that, I will quickly show a demo of this. So I do have, so this code will drop today. It's all there now. It's just, I need to make the repo public. So I'll just do a Docker compose up, and that will basically bring up the server, the agents, as well as the graph database and Redis and whatnot. It will also populate the database with dummy data, but we do have like AWS Backstage Kubernetes clients that can import data from your environment, right? So we'll just let it populate the database with fake data for now, and then I can show you the graph database. So if I click connect, so we're using Neo4j for the graph database for now. But most of the queries are in Cypher or OpenCypher, so it's fairly transferable to other databases that support OpenCypher. So we can see that it has created around 60-ish, or we have dumped around 60 sort of entities. We have like, let's say, 3 EKS clusters. They're all fake demo stuff anyway, so it's not real. We have 3 accounts and whatnot. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna so the Nextly graph system has a UI. Let me quickly delete the previous runs data. And what we can do is we can ask it to like do that fuzzy search, deep search thing, and process all the documents that are there. And so what that will do is that it will go through all the documents, do that whole fuzzy search for each property, each value, and figure out what the metrics are, what the heuristics are, right? So it shouldn't take too long because there's not many documents, but I'm running it in debug mode, so which limits it to 1 coroutine, so it's easy to debug. So once that's done, it should basically populate like the relations that it has noticed, right? Like candidate relations, essentially. So, for example, we have like the AWS EC2 instance, the tags in the EC2 instance match up with the Backstage system's name, right? And that happens a number of times. Things like the service, the cluster name matches up with the namespace. So they're kind of similar in a similar cluster. The ingress matches up with Kubernetes cluster and all that, right? So here's a bunch of potential relations, and then this will run automatically, but what I'll trigger is the evaluation by the LLM, right? So the LLM will look at all these potential relations, and then it will start essentially evaluating each of these relations. And if I start refreshing the page, you can see that they get applied slowly. And so the idea is that the heuristics processing does like 70-80% of the work, and then we let the LLM do the last sort of 20-30% to actually decide on the relation name, to do the the actually applying the relation to the database. So once it has applied, let's quickly, hopefully it won't take too much time. So this is dummy data. So most of these relations will be applied because the data was curated to kind of generate relations, but there will be certain ones that it will not have enough confidence for. So hopefully we'll see that. One thing is that let's say if we look at this one, it does provide like justification for why the relation should exist, and also like the thoughts about like, okay, like how did the analysis and the evaluation of it. So yeah, in this case, it rejected this one. It said that, oh, yeah, the two documents have the same cluster name, but it means it should connect through a different entity, like a cluster entity, rather than directly, right? And so if I go back to the database, we can see that it has created a bunch of relations. So we can sort of take a look. So for example, yeah, this is a case cluster, and you can see that all the relations being created. It figured out that this cluster belongs to this account, this namespace is in this cluster, this ingress is in this cluster, as well as if I, let's say, do service, so this service is related to this deployment, and this deployment is related to this backstage component. So it created an entire graph from this. So now we also have, with this system, we also have a question and answer agent with a A2A server. So what we can do is we can run that, run the client, and kind of query the database through that client, right? So let me launch that. So I can say, hey, what do you know? And then it basically will fetch like all the things it knows about, like, oh, here's the stuff I know. I can say, get me AWS accounts, or get me a list of AWS accounts. So as you can see, it will, on the left is the agent. It will traverse the graph, and it will say, hey, there's 3 AWS accounts. I can do a little bit more interesting queries, like let's say I have a load balancer. I want to know, or ELB. I want to know, hey, which ingress, Kubernetes ingress, relates to this load balancer, right? So again, this is like different systems. One is Kubernetes cluster, one is AWS, and that's the sort of the power of this, is that it can be able to relate things. Yeah, so it can say, oh, look, it's this ingress here called alpha staging in this cluster, right? And so that's the part, that's the main advantage of this. So I can also say, like, hey, what backstage component is linked to alpha backend deployment and dev? So it will basically figure out what a deployment is, what a backstage component is, and then find the relation between them. So the sort of the real kind of advantage of doing it this methodology is that that you don't have to document like, hey, we are tagging our resources in a certain way, or like our AWS instances or our backstage components in a certain way to relate things, right? Like it figures out based on what the ground truth is in the infrastructure. So that's kind of a sort of a little demo of like how we are doing it. This is sort of the architecture. Basically we have a few clients that dump data, and then what I just mentioned, which is we have a heuristics collector, and then it goes to the LLM, and then it does a whole loop, and it keeps doing this. So as the data gets updated, it will create new relations or remove them as needed. And yeah, and next there's a quite a few things we need to do, like entity deduplication, relation deduplication, and whatnot that we need to kind of work on. And yeah. So that's kind of a sort of simple demo of GraphRAG and GraphGen. Yeah, feel free to ask any questions around this. The code is there. I will be, so it's in the Canoe.io org. It's called Nexigraph, and I'm just dotting the I's and crossing the T's to make sure that like we're not leaking anything, which I'll make this public by end of today. Yeah, that's
We don't want
yeah.
to put it public. I don't think so, right?
Okay.
We don't want to create more repos every
Sure.
week. We're going to have a new repo.
Yeah.
Put it as a folder, I guess, in the platform engineering.
Yeah, I think if you agree, we'll do some offline quick thumbs up on a certain folder structure. I can suggest something, or Nayal or Carlos, and then Shubham, we can fold this back into under agents, probably in XCgraph, and then we'll have a server and client, and then something like that will create bindings.
Not agents, right? Like it's all the Nexi graph piece actually goes in a
Multi-agent system. Yeah.
Not even multi-agent. It's more like a core piece of infrastructure or technology,
Sure.
right? Like trying to create a graph and the problems around it, right? Because that's so we're thinking about that, and then the query bit that's going to be in the agent, right? So they think about. I mean that's a good candidate to think about, because we may have other similar things in the future, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not just an agent that is a React agent with a bunch of tools. It does do a lot of heuristics and whatnot before. So I think that's why I think the QA question and answer agent makes complete sense to make it as part of the monorepo.
It seems like there's even more. I mean, so this whole idea is super interesting. Obviously, I think I've asked you guys before about how you were thinking about GraphRAG, because it seems like it just do very well with it. It seems like this has got a few parts here, which, like the LexiGraph part in general, seems almost separate from platform engineering entirely, right? It's broader potentially than correct me if I'm wrong. It essentially takes nodes in a graph database and uses fuzzy search and LLMs to figure out relationships to basically map them together. Like that could work outside of platform engineering, or am I off on that?
Yeah, exactly. And like the use cases I've used is platform engineering related. Like the nodes are all platform, like
the clients. Essentially, the clients that you've built there look like they are. I would classify them similar to backstage entity providers, right? They're ways to populate nodes in the graph, contribute nodes from different sources that the general system can then process without knowing about Kubernetes or AWS, or is that fair to say?
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly.
I think one potential enhancement we talked about is, so I mean, eventually we can see whether it's backstage, especially backstage, the search could be replaced with something like this, plus unstructured data. So if there is a multi-agent system that can retrieve data from a GraphRAG and also unstructured data, that could be the context the LLM can use to answer a question. So we could fire off basically a deep research type multi-agent system where it'll ask GraphRAG for the same info as unstructured RAG, and then it can summarize that type of info. So I can see this as an independent agent. I think that definitely positioning wise makes sense. But also I'm open to putting this in the same.
I would still put it in the same monorepo. Like I would structure it in like some kind of like a core or foundational pieces of technology, right? So that's the bit to consider, like in what we are doing with Nexi, like GraphRAG and the relationship generation and whatnot. And then you have bigger thing is yes, it can be applied in other places, right? But we want to kind of like evolve this as an ecosystem targeted around this use case, right? Now, I mean, if there is when we have interest, I think then we can figure out whether it makes sense to fork or not, because the same type of collaboration and other problems will come in, right? So let's not deviate from that, and then see. I mean, if there's genuine interest, and if people come and say, then at that point we can decide, okay, we're gonna lift it off and kind of do some kind of get sub module, or like however we want to integrate that, right? But I'd still go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to see if there is consensus on that. Carlos, Nayal, Adam, Gaurav, others. I think I'm okay with it.
Just a quick note from myself really quickly. So most of the MCP servers today we have are API based. There is one delineation that I'm recently seeing is we call our tools as knowledge tools and API tools, both covered under MCP. So this mostly looks to me like a knowledge tool or a knowledge MCP server or a knowledge based agent. So that is one way of thinking about it as well. And there may be more RAG based implementations that we may need for certain agents. So that's another factor to keep in mind. And I think what we are talking also is about delineating the ingress or ingestion part from the query part. So query part, like everybody is suggesting, is definitely the agentic workflow. The ingestion part is the one which, if I'm understanding correctly, is the one which we want to put in the core foundational piece.
Which is true, and even on the ingestion part, like it could be a foundational piece. We may have like different personas and different agentic to do the maintenance and the upkeep of the ingestion, and think about a graph system growing very big. Now you may have to then have a separate system to go and kind of prune it, audit it. I know, like there may be other bits and bobs needed when you want to kind of like handle a migration or cut down certain things for performance. I mean, a whole bunch of things, right? So, and they could become other types of personas. So what that kind of an angle. But yeah, it's a there's a lot. I mean, this is really good. I mean, our internal version is pretty awesome. So we've like combined like security insights, AWS accounts, whole bunch of things. I mean, it can like answer things pretty rapidly. Obviously we did everything manually first, like the relationships and everything, and then so this is like, okay, this is too tiresome, and let's put the LLMs to the mix. Go ahead, Shri, you're muted.
Yeah, I would say let's go monorepo way. We can adjust, the directory structure, other attributes as we see fit, and that way, if this project, as someone mentioned, becomes big enough, we can always split it off, and if there is enough interest, say this needs to be offered standalone. Are there any other questions on this topic? It's a great demo, Shubham. Let's get this out there soon, so folks can try.
And if anybody is like particularly keen on another graph backend type of thing, I think maybe look at contributing that work type of it. Maybe interesting to. I think we primarily tested Neo4j, but any that could be a good one to try. Because I think from an ecosystem point of view, I think there is interest there, right? I mean,
so at least the integration or the reference implementation somebody else can bring is what Gaurav said is this is a tool, so it can be exposed as an MCP tool, right?
Maybe I quickly looked at the clients. I do have some concerns about how these have been constructed. We might need to dig into. The AWS approach doesn't seem like it's going to scale very well. And then the Kubernetes one, it looks like it's syncing an entire cluster. I don't know if that's just iterating the resource of the cluster. We have seen many times where that will literally break a Kubernetes cluster if it gets big enough, and I'm not even saying that big. We can talk about that separately, but there's some things we should probably consider there.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think that the clients are definitely something that was written quickly so that we can get the data in, but definitely something that needs to be a little bit more fleshed out. Yeah.
So in the interest of time, we thought further if you can get that. Hasid, did you want to get your thoughts?
No, I was gonna go for it.
Yeah.
You guys continue.
Yeah, Ifan, if you can quickly share what's been going on with evaluation. I know we have limited time, but we'll allocate more time next week. That'll also give you more time to get your stuff together. But yeah, please go ahead. Thanks.
It's an area I want to learn more.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's gonna be a really short demo though, so it's not gonna take long. So for the current evaluation of the open source AI platform engineering while using the Phoenix framework. So which is like a open source version of the Lensmith. So we can gather traces from using the open telemetry. So what I did to this project is I set up another Phoenix container, and I tried to use the open telemetry to get to export the traces from the main agent to the Phoenix container. So the problem I'm currently facing is that each container was actually set up individually, so I can't really, actually get the traces between each agent A2A call. But I can show the demos that I implemented recently. So to save time, I already run the Phoenix and the Docker container here. Let me run the CLI for the channel. So for example, we can show the recent GitHub repo. And we go to the Lensmith, the Phoenix server here. Just refresh it. Yeah, and we can see the latest trajectory generated here. So this is actually the main agent for the supervisor agent. And it's calling the GitHub agent to track the information of the GitHub repo. And it goes back to the supervisor agent to get our answers here. Oh, it seems there's an error with the fetching, but actually it's calling the right to, right? So the current problem I'm facing is that it's really hard to track the the agent calls, the agent communications of the A2A protocol. So the thing the ideal way of doing it is probably be something like that. We can show the GitHub agent execution and see the A2A protocol calls. But I mean, I'm having trouble with finding, getting the right way of, getting the right, getting the right way to extract the A2A calls. But I'm struggling with that recently, so I haven't finished yet, but I hope I'm gonna finish it soon. I mean, that's the overall design of the open source evaluation using Phoenix. Are there any questions about that?
Question is like, why did you choose Phoenix? I'm just like curious.
I mean, because there are like from the other team, Kevin told me that they are basically building our eval using Phoenix, and
Okay.
I did a little bit comparison about the land views and Phoenix, but I didn't find much difference.
Okay.
So there are some codes that I can directly use from our eval to implement the Phoenix structure there.
Okay. Go ahead, Carlos. You had a question.
Just a couple. So I think I've been looking at Ragas, the different solutions, Langsmith, Langfused. This is a new one, Phoenix. I'll take a look. It looks like it's open source and it can run in Kubernetes. It's simple to deploy, I'm guessing, or not.
Yeah, it can be run in the
Doesn't require ClickHouse, for example, or Postgres like other Langfused, or is not heavy a lot at all. In terms of running in Kubernetes, does it have a lot of components that is heavy to deploy or not? Does it cost a lot of money to run it? Maybe that's the question.
Yeah, I don't really think so, because I just pulled the Docker image and it works. So.
Oh, one Docker image?
Yeah.
So it's like a sandbox or stateless, not production deployment. Okay.
Yeah.
And it looks like you show the tracing feature. have you started looking at evaluations in terms of like how the responses are not toxic, the different evaluations that are done in agents that these projects
Yeah, I mean,
offer?
I already done some works with the internal Java system. So, but the difficult part of this project is gonna be the just tracing extraction. So because the agents are like separate, they are not like in the each sub-agent is a black box. So I mean, if I make the traces correctly, it would be quite easier to do the evaluation. But because I already done that.
And then that was my next question of like A2A got donated to Linux Foundation. I don't know if people knew that. I think everybody knows that. Cisco had a quote there, also AWS, because it's recorded, Primo. They don't have support, like top level support for Autel, because I was doing some work with Strands and it uses Autel, but Autel has an old library of the protobuf that is not compatible with the A2A. So what's the tracing story on Autel in A2A? Is it not there? That's why you're having trouble?
Yeah, the problem I'm in trouble with is that I'm trying to integrate the traces from the A2A to to the actual traces in it.
Yeah, if I
Yeah.
could probably double click. So the thread ID or the context ID or what A2A calls task ID, if they match across all the distributed systems, then you can correlate the distributed traces. So I think we could probably do a working session, double clicks to see if so the client, in this case, the CLI client, creates the initial session ID or
The trace ID.
thread ID, different names for the same thing, but that gets passed to the supervisor agent.
Yeah.
And if the supervisor agent doesn't pass the same thread ID to the sub agent when it does A2A call, then these are independent traces. So I think we just need to make sure that they're all correlated. The same session ID is passed, the thread ID is passed across all
Yeah,
the
context propagation with the trace ID, so every individual component sends their spans to the same collector in OpenTail.
So your other question, from my understanding, A2A does not have an opinion yet on OTel. They are leaving it up to the frameworks, whether it's Laminex or Strands or so you can annotate to get the right OTel trace behavior. So, but it should, because they do support session ID pass through. I would imagine this should work, but we have to obviously it's
I
not
don't know
as
where
simple.
they store the trace information, if it's metadata in the session or the messages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Okay,
but
cool. Thank you.
Great demo, Ifan. I
Great
think
demo.
it is a complex problem for sure. I
Are
think
you using Phoenix in Cisco in production? You selected Phoenix?
Internally we're using Langsmith for our like production system. This is something we wanted to pick a OSS solution for the OSS project. So that's why I think the team picked Phoenix, from my understanding.
Okay.
I mean, and we need to keep an eye out for it. I expect the A2A and the whole ecosystem to evolve as well. So I think, and then we'll have to mature and change as well along with that. So, but we need something, right? Eval is such a crucial thing to have and then evolve, because otherwise you can't reliably use these systems. Okay, I think we are over time. Go ahead.
Any final questions? Adam, you came off video mute. Anything from you? Yeah, all good.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that I thought that demo was fantastic. I'm really curious about the OSL, or not OSL, but the open measurability of that stuff, because that looks really exciting. So
awesome. So the next SIGGRAPH will go in anytime today, this week. Ifan will present more next week. We'll also bring in Kevin from our internal team to kind of talk about evaluations. And in the next, we've been working on this for several months already. So hopefully we can do a full comprehensive open source view of the evals and traces soon. And we have more stuff with Stefan and Sunny working on Helm charts backstage. So more stuff coming along. And also, for you see the backlog, you guys, pick anything that's available, anything that you can contribute. So appreciate everyone's time. Thank you. Good catching up.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the demos as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the demos.